Hello everybody, it's Mrs. Pound and I'm back with another video from chapter 6.1 about genetics from purposeful design life science. Today we're going to talk about reproduction and heredity from section 6.1.2. So our objectives today are to name and describe 4 types of asexual reproduction and explain the role of gametes and genes in sexual reproduction. Now you can remember from when we talked about the characteristics of living things that God made living things to reproduce. That's one of the characteristics of living things. And recall that there are 2 types of reproduction: asexual reproduction, where there's only one parent, and sexual reproduction where there are 2 parents. Now remember, asexual reproduction, um, with that type of reproduction, the offspring are going to be identical to the parents. There's going to be no variety because they get all of their genetic information from the one parent. With sexual reproduction, because there are 2 parents, there's great variety in the offspring because they're a combination of both parents. They get a combination of the genetic material from both parents. So let's first start with asexual reproduction. So the 4 basic types of asexual reproduction are: the first one is vegetative propagation. And you're probably quite familiar with this. Plants do this naturally, like the spider plant. At the bottom here are little plantlets that it is producing on itself. Also, maybe at home, you or a parent has taken a cutting from a plant and put it in water and then it grew roots. That's called rooting. That is a type of vegetative propagation. Also, um, things like strawberry plants, they send out runners that then become new plants from the parent plant. That's also an example of vegetative propagation. So plants definitely do a lot of this. Another type of asexual reproduction is spore formation on ferns. And so on the back of these ferns, you can see these spores. That is a type of asexual reproduction. Also, there is budding with yeast. Now, what you see here are yeast reproducing asexually, these little dots that are forming on the larger yeast cell. Those are the buds that will develop and break off and grow into a new yeast cell. So yeast bud. And the distinction here is these buds are smaller than the parent cell. Okay, they're smaller than the parent cell. And the fourth and most common type is fission. And it's most common because bacteria do this, and there are a lot of bacteria out there. And so fission is right here. You can see this line developing on this bacterial cell. It is reproducing asexually. This is fission, where similar to mitosis, okay, we've talked to mitosis, but a little bit different. And it just produces a new cell here at this line. These will break apart and the bacteria will have reproduced asexually. So remember, with this type of reproduction, the offspring are going to be identical genetically to the parent. Now, sexual reproduction results in a greater variety of offspring because it involves genetic information from 2 parents. And we can see in this family in the background, that their children appear to have a combination of characteristics from both parents. So we get a lot of variety here. Um, you can also see variety if you've ever had a dog that has puppies or a cat that has kittens. There's a lot of variety there. Now, with sexual reproduction, it involves gametes. These are male or female reproductive cells, and these are commonly the egg and the sperm. And I know there's probably some giggling going on here, but all organisms that reproduce sexually, actually, it involves an egg and a sperm. Even plants reproduce this way. They have eggs in the ovary and the flower, and in the pollen cells, there's actually a sperm cell in every single pollen cell. So This is something that is common to all things that reproduce sexually. Even algae in the ocean release sperm cells, and they also have egg cells that combine. So, very common thing. Now, the genetic material contained in the egg and the sperm cell, the gametes, um, in that genetic material, there are things called genes. These are small segments of DNA, genetic material, that carry hereditary information. So, all of the characteristics that make up something are coded for by genes, and the genes have information to make all of the materials that make up you. So, any enzyme that would need to be created, any protein that would need to be created, all of those things are coded for. Your eye color is coded for. Some things are just one gene codes for it. Things such as like your hairline, whether it's straight or a widow's peak, whether you have lobed ears or attached lobes or free lobes on your ears. Um, those things are just a single gene. Other things require multiple genes to code for them. For example, your skin color is multiple genes. That's why there are so many shades of skin color amongst people. Hair color is multiple genes. Eye color is multiple genes. So there are things controlled by multiple genes. Now, a gene is like a chapter in a book. Those chapters form chromosomes. A chromosome is a structure that holds the genetic information that is passed on to new cells. So the genes, and you can see here, like these different colors might be different genes on these chromosomes. Those genes are on the chromosome. A chromosome is like a book. Okay, a chromosome is like a book and it contains all of those genes, and different genes are found on different chromosomes. And we'll talk about the implications of that later with the X and Y chromosomes. There are sex linked traits because of that. And so that's where your characteristics come from, are these genes on the chromosomes. So our objectives today were to name and describe 4 types of asexual reproduction and explain the role of gametes and genes in sexual reproduction. Now don't forget to keep watching this video to answer the questions at the end, and don't forget your 5 questions in your notes, and I'll be back with more about genetics.